Dear Jorge, you are EPF president since more than 3 years now.
Yeah.
You are finishing your mandate in 6 months or
In
half a
April,
year
yes.
or something like that. You were not in the EPF executive before your presidency.
No.
Why for have you the wish to head the EPF and to lead the EPF? What was interesting? What was the appeal?
I work with and for the EPF. First of all, during the I work before even in questions of training and so on, and participate in several meetings. But essentially, when David Tackett was president and he created the working parties, I was chairing.
And that was to beginning of 2000.
2000, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And we work, the working party on theoretical issues. I chair that working party with, and the members were Peter Fonagiver, Nebo Leber, and Paul Denis. And we worked for 10 years with that working party and published 2 books and prepare a third one that must appear next year when I finish my presidency. Then there was an interest from my part on continue participating in the EPF. I didn't make a reflection and a proposal to be the president. They told me if I accepted the idea of presenting myself as president, and I said, why not? I love EPF, and I think it's important. There are several important things that we could do in EPF.
Yes, what had you in mind when you when there was a solicitation? You answered yes, why not? What had you in mind that you could bring or add to the EPF?
Oh, you know, to add is very difficult in psychoanalysis, but my idea, not only in DPF but in general, is that we as psychoanalysts need to intermix, and to accept, to open to other disciplines, ideas, and we need to actualize our relationship with science and culture.
With?
Culture and science. I'm saying since years that there is a serious cultural gap in the training of psychoanalysts.
So you are in some way moving back to what Freud recommended.
Exactly. And then I thought that in the arguments of the conferences, but also in our work here with candidates, new training analysts, and so on, we need to introduce some novelties. And the arguments of our conference are a demonstration of that in this period of 4 years.
That's the main question. The mandate is 4 years. You are near to the end. Now, are you happy with what you have been able to introduce, or
Yes.
unhappy?
I'm happy.
Happy.
Yeah. I think that was a good experience. I think that will continue to be a good experience in the next executive, because we share several ideas. It's not only about what we were talking now. There was another thing that for me was important: to open to other psychoanalytical cultures and to facilitate the presence of people who is working psychoanalysis but is living very far from here and are interested in European psychoanalysis, like China, India, South Africa, and so on. Then we destinate money also for doing that these people could come, at least 3-4 candidates in each of these regions, and participate to our conference. And this was a very good experience, and for us very important, because we have connections with China, with India, with South Africa, with other places that are interested in how Europeans think about psychoanalysis. And Europe has a particularity that is essential, that is the variety.
Yes, and that's the question I wanted to ask you now. What does EPF means for you?
EPF means the possibility, you know, the title of the first conference was in German, das eigene und das Fremde, and was translated like le propre et l'étranger, or the familiar and the unfamiliar, but the translation was not very good. But the idea was we are the only region that have 26 different languages, first of all, not only in psychoanalysis.
Yes, I just, for those who are listening to us, I give the precision. The other regions are Latin America and North America. And Europe is one of the 3 regions,
in fact,
acknowledged by the International Psychoanalytical Association.
Yes. And it's important to think that Latin America is more or less monolingual, in the sense that between Spanish and Portuguese in Brazil, we understand each other very easily. North America is monolingual, and the only region that has a lot of languages and cultures and a
lot of pieces, not only the languages, the pieces, the cultures.
Exactly. And I think that this is the special interest in Europe, to have the possibility of exchanges and to understand the limits, and at the same time to separate the borders and the boundaries of each country, each culture, each language, and so on. Psychoanalysis made that possible, and it's important also the fact that we made an agreement with IPA in order to have a joint venture to support first of all, the Institute for East Europe, after transforming EPI, the European Psychoanalytic Institute, and to have the possibility to open 2 countries that were outside till the end of the Soviet Union.
I would like to come back to something you said a few minutes ago. You spoke about India, South Africa, and China, and you mentioned your wish to offer the possibilities for trainees, for candidates of these people to immerse themselves in the EP, in the European psychoanalytical culture, if I may say. Okay, but I was told that this is bringing people from, for instance, from China to Europe, but I know that you are going yourself quite often to China, and China is quite another world. So how can you, why for are you going to China? What is the aim?
The aim is essentially to teach psychoanalytical concepts to the Chinese that are training there, having the experience of entering contact with European psychoanalysts. One essential aim. The second is that we think that when we have to do with something new, and Chinese culture is something new also for themselves, because themselves are changing. This is not the situation like in the 16th or 17th century when the Jesuits went to China and introduced for the first time the Christian ideas or the Occidental languages, they change a lot. They have a process in this last century that is important. They are very interested in psychoanalysis and in the way of thinking about psychoanalysis.
I agree, but I agree partially with you because we referred to Freud at the beginning of our conversation and the importance of culture. But I'm not so sure that for Freud that he had in mind a kind of universality of psychoanalysis. Universe was bordered in what Central Europe mainly was, and even when he moved to America, I'm not sure that he was certain that they were ready to take it. So, do you really think that psychoanalysis and the freedom of thinking, which is the basis of psychoanalysis, is good for the whole world?
I think that is good. The question is possible? That is another question. Yeah. You know, Freud is interesting to know that Freud wrote several letters to Chinese who were translating his papers, and were the first notices we have about the problem of translating German to Chinese, for example. But regarding what you were saying, do you think that the opening the limits of German on the center of Europe to the Americans was a good idea? Because the question is that we know that we open to the translation in English and the transformation of the Zeitschrift in the international journal was a necessity, was not a choice. The necessity of a situation that was closed and persecuted by the Nazism, and the fact that we need to translate into English, and we know all the problems we have with the translation in English of the German literature and German, Freudian German, and over the fact that the same people that were running out of Europe and created after the ego psychology in the United States had to create the ego psychology because the principle of adaptation was related with the necessity there. That was a transformation of psychoanalysis.
We have to stop our conversation, Jorge, but last comment. My feeling at the end of our exchange is that you are pretty optimistic about what China could pick up from sharing and exchanging with European psychoanalysis. So
I'm curious.
We have to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much.